Hi everyone, my name is Julie. I am a teacher and a speech and language therapist. Today is World Autism Awareness Day, and so I will be sharing a few facts about autism that will help dispel the myths, the misconceptions, and the stigma that is usually attached to autism. I'll make this as short as possible. We usually have a more detailed workshop for educators and parents who want to be in a better position to support their autistic children. But this is just, to give you an overview of autism so that you are aware. And by the end of the video, I'll also be sharing a few teaching strategies you can use in your classroom to help autistic children. So let's delve right in. In brief, what is autism? Autism is actually a neurological developmental disorder. Some people call it condition. I prefer to call it condition too, but the acronym ASD is Autism Spectrum Disorder. So it's a neurological developmental disorder that affects the way people behave, it affects the way people communicate, it affects the way people socialize, it affects the way people learn. When we say neurological, right, it has to do with the brain function. The brain in an autistic child functions differently. It could be high functioning, it could be low functioning, it could be mid-range, but it functions differently, and that's why they behave differently. Then when we say developmental, challenges will begin to present themselves within the first 2 years of life, usually before the age of 3. You start to see challenging attributes, or challenging behavior that lets you know, oh, my child may be autistic, then you now go in for an assessment, and then your child is either diagnosed as autistic or not. So that's the definition of autism. Now, autism affects 1 out of 36 children. Okay? When you do the maths and you bring it close to home, it means that if you have a school population of 60, then you probably have 2 children who are autistic. If you have a school population of 100, you likely have 3 children who are autistic. If you have a school population of 200, then you double the numbers of 100. When you bring that to your classroom settings, the same thing. So if you have a class size of 30, you're likely going to have 1 child who is autistic. If you have a class size of 60, then you're likely going to have 2 children who are autistic. That's why it's so important that you are well informed to be able to support autistic children in your classroom. Then it's also good to note that boys are more likely to be diagnosed with autism than girls. I didn't say that boys have more autism than girls. It may seem so, but that's because they are diagnosed more than girls. And the reason is simply because girls have the way of masking their autism. Their autism is a bit subtle. It's not as visible or as noticeable as the traits of boys. So for a boy, you notice aggressive behavior sometimes, you notice hyperactivity, you notice repetitive behavior, and you also notice reduced pro-social behavior, right? And that's quite opposite for girls. So their traits are not usually the same, and you have to really understand how it presents in girls for you to know that, oh, this girl is autistic. Because sometimes their personality also masks it. Like you see, when I have to talk with the parents of autistic girls, most of them just tell me, oh, she's very shy. She's very shy, she's an introvert, she likes to be by herself. So that personality is masking the fact that she's autistic. So it happens with a lot of shy girls, most times they are autistic, but if the society sees nothing wrong in having a shy girl, they just feel maybe it's a feminine character, it's a feminine trait. So it's not diagnosed as autism. And then sometimes their traits are seen as the symptoms of another underlying condition, so they don't attribute it to autism. And true to form, in my time as a speech and language therapist, I've worked with only 3 girls, but about 4 dozen boys, give or take. So the numbers of boys diagnosed is quite more than that of the girls. It's also important to note that autism is one of the fastest growing disorders in the world. One of the fastest growing developmental disorders in the world, and it's growing faster than childhood cancer, diabetes, and AIDS combined. That's a lot. That's why it's very worrisome. I don't want to say amusing. So it's worrisome that some teachers will say, I've never met an autistic child. I don't think you have never met an autistic child. I just feel you are not aware of autism. You're not aware of what to look out for in an autistic child. So the chances are you have had an autistic child in your classroom, and because you're not aware, you're not able to give support. And that means the child just goes through the education system from an autistic child into an autistic adult without support or help to thrive, to thrive. And that is why I think we should really be more intentional about arming ourselves with enough knowledge to help special needs children in our classroom. Even the statistics are not encouraging. About 2% of teachers in Nigeria are trained to help special needs children. The number is very low, it's quite low. And when I have to give workshops or trainings on special needs, I'm surprised at the number of teachers who have never heard about autism. Okay, so I think it's quite worrisome, and I'm hoping that the numbers improve, that the numbers of special needs educators increase so that we can help the children in our classrooms. Now, autism, sometimes when you start talking about autism, it instills a lot of fear in the hearts of parents. But children are uniquely autistic, and are uniquely different. Autistic children are unique. They are quite different. They are quite different because I have already mentioned their brain functions differently. So it's important to note that when you have met one autistic child, you have only met one autistic child. I'm going to explain. When you're treating malaria, right, or a patient with malaria, malaria presents with symptoms such as high fever, headaches, loss of appetite, nausea, vomiting, joint pains, etc. A few additions and subtractions. So if you have treated one malaria patient, 2 malaria patients, 3 malaria patients, 4, 5 malaria patients, you probably met the entire range of malaria patients in Africa. But it's quite different for autism. If you have met one autistic child, you have only met one autistic child. They are uniquely different. So, even in my time as a speech and language therapist, I have noticed that the intervention plans that I prepare for autistic children are very different. No 2 intervention plans look alike because the children are different. Okay, if you have met autistic child A is different from autistic child B, different from autistic child C, D, E, F, G. So it would be wrong to use autistic child's B plan to work on other children's plan, other autistic children's plan, because they are uniquely different. What does it mean for you as an educator? It means that if you have 2 autistic children in your classrooms, you have to be very intentional in making 2 intervention plans for the children, because one will not fit the 2. So it's a lot of work. You really have to love education to work with special needs children. So they're all different, and that's why it's a spectrum. It's autism spectrum disorder. It's a spectrum. It can be anything. It can be any trait that will display itself. So for some children, right, don't have dyslexia. That's trouble understanding language, written words, and for some children they have hyperlexia, reading above their age grade. I've met some children in nursery 3 who are reading grade 3 work. Okay, a nursery 3 child is reading, so grade 3, that's primary 3 literature, and reading it very well. That's hyperlexia. You could also have some children do very well in maths. Autistic children, they do very well in maths, and some autistic children are not doing well in maths at all. Some autistic children are doing so well in the arts and are struggling in maths. Some autistic children are doing well in maths and are struggling with social skills. Some autistic children have good social skills and are not doing well in the classroom at all. It's very, very different. Very different. So you have to keep this at the back of your mind when working with children. Even as parents, sometimes I see parents comparing autistic children. They're very different. Very, very different. Now, the medical angle of this is, because everybody wants to know, is there a cure? There's no cure for autism. It's a lifelong condition. An autistic child will grow into an autistic adult. an autistic child will grow into an autistic adult. There's no cure for autism. It's like there's no cure for being tall and being short, because it's just part of you. It's part of your DNA. It's part of your build-up. That's the same way it is for autism. There's no cure for it, because so taking a medication cannot make you more or less autistic. But we do have medications that can help manage some of the symptoms that come with being autistic. For instance, you have medications to manage stress, anxiety, depression. You have those kind of medications, but it doesn't mean that it will make you less autistic. Okay, and there's also no medical blood tests to detect if your child will be autistic, if your fetus will be autistic. Okay, so please don't be deceived that there are medications to cure autism, but there's an injection or a vaccine that you'll be on to cure autism, because none actually exist. So what is the cause of autism? There is no known cause of autism. Like, we can't say that this is what is causing autism. You can't just pick it up and say this thing like this is what is causing autism. For malaria, we can say, oh, malaria is caused by the bite of an Anopheles mosquito. We already know. So how do we get rid of malaria? You fleet your house, you make sure you don't have stagnant water around, you take the necessary measures to eradicate the Anopheles mosquito that causes malaria. But it's not the same for autism, alright? Although, there are some factors that may increase the chances of you having an autistic child. Parental factors, for instance, environmental factors could increase the risk of you having an autistic child. Okay, in some cases, it's heredity. In some cases, it's not. I've seen autistic parents with non-autistic children, and I've seen parents who are not autistic, and there's no known trace of autism in their lineage, give birth to children who are autistic. Okay, so there's no known cause, but there are factors that will increase the risk of having autistic children. Then it's also true that these children are very talented, because people worry, will my child amount to anything? Will my child grow up to be somebody? Will my child be dependent on me or on support for the rest of his life? Autistic children are talented children. We have autistic children that are very good in maths. We have autistic children that are very good in the arts, in drama, theater, music, culinary work, fashion design. Most of them take the artistic route, and some of them still do very well in other walks of life. So please don't imagine that having an autistic child is a death sentence for your child. No, it's not. They do very, very well. They are very, very creative. Yeah, so I think that's their section. Okay, they make good musicians, good songwriters. They do awesome work as decorators, interior decorators. They are very, very good at it. But you have to start early, to start noticing the traits of your child, the likes and the dislikes of your child, and then you build on it. Okay, it's very, very important. Early support is key. Early support is very, very key. Now, treatment for autism, like I said, there is no cure, but there's no medicinal cure, but we have therapies that we put the children through, even adults, so that they can thrive in the society, they can thrive on their own without so much support. We have occupational therapy, we have behavioral therapy, we have speech and language therapy, and then we have medication. So behavioral therapy, we use this therapy to promote or reinforce positive behavior and reduce challenging behavior. That's behavioral therapy. So in that therapy, you modify the child's, how the child behaves. If the child is violent, for instance, you use behavior therapy to work on that child to reduce that violent habits and to encourage a more calming attitude, something like that, all right? Then you have occupational therapy that teaches social skills so that the child can live on his own or not be so dependent on someone else, all right? That's occupational therapy. You teach skills, you teach life skills to help the child thrive. Then you have speech and language therapy to help the child communicate properly, both verbally and non-verbally. You also have medications, like I said earlier, that will help to reduce some challenging symptoms like anxiety, hyperactivity, aggression, to improve concentration. So you have medication that help improve concentration. Now, teaching children with autism, so you have to be very, very creative when working with autistic children. It's very, very important. As much as possible, use the child's interest to deliver lessons. So for you to use the child's interest, it means you actually have to know your child, not just on the surface level. You have to know your child, all right? If your child loves fire trucks, you use fire trucks to teach lessons. Incorporate fire trucks in your lessons to teach colors, to teach shapes, to teach numbers, counting, division, addition, subtraction. Incorporate fire trucks in your language class. You can have books on fire trucks. You know, that's why I said you have to be very creative. Hey, if you're not creative, honestly, you'll be frustrated, number one, and the child in the classroom will also be frustrated. So yeah, if your child likes sharks or aquatic life, find a way to incorporate that into your lessons too. It will make a lot of difference. As much as possible, keep your lectures very short. If you're not interested in tales by moonlight, keep your lectures very short. Short and to the point, you know, because at some point their mind has a way of shutting down, closing you out and shutting down. So your lectures should be brief and concise. No sarcasm. I know these days, you know, sarcasm is like a high point in conversation. Like if you don't understand sarcasm, you're missing out on life. For a sick child, please don't use sarcasm because they take you for your word. You know, as much as possible in your lessons, avoid sarcasm. In your classrooms, avoid sarcasm. Also encourage the children to avoid sarcasm. Like, an autistic child can say in the middle of your class, "Auntie, I want to pee." And you say, "Come and pee now, come and pee on me." You see the child find a way to sit on you and literally pee on you or pee on somebody else. So please avoid sarcasm in your lectures. Avoid noise, avoid distraction. So understand the sensory input of your autistic child. You know, so autistic children do not like noise. They react to noise. Some react to bright colors. Some react to strong perfume, and that irritates them. And by the time they're irritated, they're not concentrating on their lessons. So find out what irritates your child or what is a trigger in your autistic child and avoid it in your classroom. Also give enough time for a child to process information, right? I know I'm speeding through this video, but if I have an autistic child, or if I'm talking to an autistic child now, I wouldn't speed up like this. You know, you take your time to teach autistic children. You have to be patient with them because they need enough time to process information and to digest the information and to store it away, okay, to store it appropriately so that they can bring it up again. So don't rush through your classes, don't rush through your classes, don't rush through your lectures. Take your time, slow and steady. And that is why their classes are as personalized and individualized as possible. You may have your group classes, but you also have to make out time to have a one-on-one with them where there are no distractions, just you, the autistic child, you know, doing what you have to do and making sure that the child is learning. Again, make sure your lessons are activity-based. They learn by doing a lot. It's proven. They learn by doing. So as much as you can, incorporate lots of activities in your classroom. It's going to help. It's also good to reinforce positive behavior when working with autistic children, all right? Find ways to reward good behavior. Yeah, find ways to reward good behavior. Most times, the wrong method of disciplining the autistic child will make him shut you out, you know, even worsen whatever has been happening that you felt needed that negative reinforcement. And as much as you can, positive reinforcement is very important. You know, give rewards for good behavior. It works more than punishing a child. Not just an autistic child anyway. All children. Encourage positive behavior as much as possible by giving rewards whenever you can. But it's okay. An autistic child is in my classroom. What is my goal for that child? We have educational goals for autistic children. You have short-term goals, you have middle-term goals, and you have long-term goals. For short-term goals, could be like learning to feed himself, learning to potty train, you know, learning to dress up himself. You have middle term goals that could be literacy and numeracy, teaching the child how to read, how to write, how to solve simple equations, So short-term goals could be like in a term or 2 terms or in a session. Middle-term goals could be 2-3 years. And then long-term goals, the end result of your short-term and your mid-term goals. So for the long-term goals, we want autistic children to be able to live independently, if they can, get a job, and be able to take care of themselves with as little support as possible. Yes, because they can, yes. So we want them to thrive. We want them to thrive independently or with little dependence on other people. That's the long-term goal of an autistic child. So we want autistic children to grow into autistic adults that can take care of themselves. In general, the basic needs of an autistic child: love, belonging, and acceptance. They want to be loved, they want to belong, and they want to feel accepted in your classroom. And I'm hoping that, you are moved to doing well by the autistic children in your classroom. And if you don't have an autistic child in your classroom and you don't even have the knowledge or enough knowledge, you can lie to everybody, you can't lie to yourself. So if you evaluate yourself and you evaluate your teaching style, your teaching strategies, and you think you're not well equipped to work with an autistic child, I think this is the time to decide that I may not have an autistic child now, or I may have had and I didn't know, but I'll make sure that I'm ready so that whenever an autistic child steps into my classroom, he feels loved, he feels accepted, and he knows that he belongs. Okay? So shout out to all my autistic friends, my autistic children and their parents. I have been honored to be a part of your life. I learn from you every single day. My work with you has made me a better person, a better teacher, a better leader, a better therapist. And I thank you so much for it. And I do pray that we have more teachers who are open to learning how uniquely and beautifully different you are, because it's truly worth knowing you. Alright, so happy Autism Month, happy World Autism Awareness Day. I love you so much. Bye.